Pratik, have you posted the video, YouTube link in the chat?
Ravindra, chat is not live, but we had shared it on the other platforms. And
yeah. Chari garu, good evening.
నా పేరేంటి చాలా పేజీలలో వస్తున్నది ఇది.
Ravindra Saab, how are you? Hello.
Go ahead, sir. Also, Ravindra just went back and then coming.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. Rath Saab, we can hear you.
Oh, actually, I do have some problem with the camera, so I will be joining only voice only.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And
Okay, sir.
CEO is on the way. He will be reaching maybe within 5-10 minutes only. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Pratik, Ravindra has gone into the attendee list. Can you bring him into the panelist? I saw.
he is here. He is here. It's the other one that gone. Director sir is here.
That I know. Our Ravindra.
पॉलुश यार वो आधा चम्मच चीनी ले ही आओ यार.
Hi, Crispin Olobo sir. How are you?
Mr. Ram. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Hi, Crispin. How are you?
Hi, Ramachandra. Good, very well. Thank you. Hi, Ravindra.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
Hi, Pramitesh.
Hello, Ramchandrudu.
Yeah,
Long
how are
time.
you? Yeah, a long time.
I'm fine.
Good to see all of you here.
Yeah.
I think Sachin just joined. Hi, Sachin. How are you? You
Yes,
can't see.
I'll show you my page.
Yeah. Good.
Sachin bhai, kem cho?
Majama. Hi, Ravindra.
Ravindra, you are in mute.
Yeah. Hi, Sajin. Yeah.
It's getting 3. Should we start? Wait for some more time? Pratik?
Yeah,
Ram.
Yeah.
So I think all the panelists are here. Just like get a confirmation from Rath
Sab.
about Ashok Dal when he is joining, and we can start. Like audience, it's a house full now.
Yeah. And so Surya Kumar is there already? No.
No, Surya is not there.
I'll call him.
Yeah. He was trying to join. I saw that, but then disconnected.
And
you're joining.
Dalwaj sir will be joining somewhere.
Yeah.
He is on the way actually. He'll be reaching within few minutes maybe.
Okay.
Kumar also will be joining in 2 minutes.
We have already 116 participants. They are They all have logged in.
Hello.
Hello. Pratik, should we announce that we are starting in few minutes? Because 100 people are waiting already.
Yeah, I think Ram, if you are okay, then we can start. Like all the panelists, the desired number roughly we have, and the few are on the line, so we can get them in another minute. So we can start.
And
Wait for another minute. Wait for another minute. So Dalwai sir,
we'll wait for Dalwai Sahab.
Yes.
We'll wait for Ashok ji, but we'll announce that we are him, so that right. Ratsab, how are you? Now we can see you, Ratsab. Hi, Surya.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Very good.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We are celebrating.
Happy
your
birthday,
birth-
Surya Kumar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we are celebrating your birthday through this webinar.
Really, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Good to have you
Surya
here.
Kumar ji, good afternoon. This is Ravindra Chari from Leela.
Yeah, we met the other day in the meeting. Hi, Sachin.
Sachin bhai, you are in mute. Sachin bhai, you are in mute.
Surya, hi. This is Crispin. Hi. Hi. Hello. Hi, Surya. Hi, Crispin. How are you? Oh, very good. Fantastic. Nice seeing you after a long time. Yeah, that's true.
Hello, Crispin ji, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Who's this? Ah, Dr. Chari. Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, fine.
How are you?
Ram, maybe you can introduce the agenda meanwhile.
Yeah,
And the sequence of yeah, that would be easier.
Yeah. Should we start formally? Pratik, are we on air now or?
Yes, Ram. Yes, we are on air. Please do. Please.
Okay. Yeah. I welcome all of you. Good evening. We are on a webinar on reimagining watershed management programs in India. We already have 117 participants in the group. I welcome all of you. This is an occasion for all of us to stop a bit and reflect on how do we move forward on this important agenda with all of you together. Today we have a very eminent panel. So many persons who worked almost their entire life on watershed programs, they are all here. And at the same time, we almost have 100 and odd participants who also have equally good experience on the ground. They are all eagerly waiting to participate in this. I welcome all of you again. Before we start, I just would like to make few points for all of us so that we are on the same page in this webinar. This is going to be about 2 hours time, starting from 3 o'clock to around 5 o'clock. And we are just waiting for Dalwai Sahib from NREA. Once he joins, I think we will formally start the whole thing. This particular webinar is jointly organized by RRA Network, Revitalization of Rainfed Agriculture Network, and NREA. NREA, all of you know, has a mandate of contributing towards policy development on watershed programs as well as rainfed areas in the country. They have already initiated a process of drafting guidelines for watershed programs in the country. And this particular webinar is expected to contribute in the whole process. We welcome all panelists to share their thoughts. Then also we are eager to listen to panelists, particularly from NABARD, Surya Kumar and Ashok Dal Sahab, and from CREDA. We have an eminent list of panelists here. I have few suggestions to the panelists. There are two lead presentations, I should say. One is opening remarks kind of presentation by Sri Ashok Dal Sahab, which is about 10 minutes time. This will be followed by a brief presentation by Ravindra from RRA Network and Vasan, basically setting the context, broad contours of watershed programs. What are the challenges for us to think about watershed program at this point of time? This will also be about 10 minutes time. After this, we have, as I mentioned, very experienced and eminent panelists, starting from Surya Kumar from NABARD, and we have representatives from ICAR, NRM, Sri Chaturvedi, and also BRLF is represented by Pramathesh. We have resource organizations who worked on NGOs, particularly from Samaj Pragati Sahyog, Viju is there, and Development Support Center is represented by Sachin Oja. We have Crispin Lobo, who worked in so many states on watershed programs for a long period. We are eagerly looking forward to his inputs. And this will be followed by Dr. Ravindra Achari's inputs from CREDA. After these presentations, we have about a short period, I should say, only about 30 minutes. Participants to raise any questions, and they can be channeled to our Q&A section in the Zoom. All of you know that. And these questions will be coming to us, and we will channel these questions to respective panelists. And participants, unfortunately, do not have time to raise questions through their voice because there are too many participants. It will be a big chaos if we allow everyone to talk. But they can share their questions through Q&A section of the Zoom. And finally, it will be concluded by vote of thanks by Dr. Rath from NRA. This is the broad schedule. And I would thank everyone for joining this program. And this is also an occasion to remember Sri B.N. Yugandhar, who actually almost revolutionized our thinking and action on watershed programs in 1994, which is 25 years back. At the time, all traditionally implemented government programs were almost revamped, and a completely new architecture, new infrastructure, new way of thinking about watershed program was launched in India. And it's almost 25 years now. We have learned a lot. We did considerable good work. There were so many challenges. Now it is the time to rethink again. And how do we do this? I think the way Yugandharji and the committee under the leadership of Parth Sardigaru, they revolutionized watershed programs at that point of time. Now it is another occasion for us to, take charge of this whole thing and then, do our bit at this point of time. So with this, I would request all the participants and panelists to start the program. I hope Ashok ji is already there.
No, he is yet to reach actually.
Okay.
Actually, he was having some meeting. That's why he was having long late and on the way. Maybe another 3-4 minutes.
Okay.
We have actually put his computer system on. We can start actually in the initial some introduction I just want to make.
Yeah.
You know that NARA is mandated to issue the common guidelines for Watershed Development Program. In the past, actually, there were a lot of agencies, ministries were working on watershed programs.
Yeah.
Currently, only one program is there, IWMP, which is being implemented by DOLR, Department of Land Resources. The earlier program, actually, in 2008, we were asked to bring a common guideline so that all the agencies are in a similar pitch to implement the programs with cost norm approaches and the institutional arrangements. So that's why this 2008 and guideline came in. And in fact, in 2000, after launching a PMKSY, there are certain issues of this continuity of watershed program because this Finance Commission is for a period of 5 years, but the watersheds were designed for a period of 7 years. and also this allocation by the cabinet for any plan period or finance commission is restricted to a period of 5 years. So there were certain issues in the implementation of the IWMP projects when those were subsumed under PMKSY, and with a lot of difficulties, 1 year extension was given to the programs for the till April 2021. And then DOLR asked us to go for the new guideline. And because in the meantime, a lot of changes has happened in the context of this land degradation neutrality target, and also the NITI Aayog's commitment to go for spring set development in Himalayan region, the climate change issues, as well as the commitment of government to for FPOs and the value chain and sustainability of agriculture aspects. So on all those issues were taken into consideration in revising this new guideline. We had a small team of drafting team, taking members from different research institutions, NGOs. WASN was there, even WOTR was there, and so many state experts and state agencies were part of that one. Then we had a small draft of that one. We had a core team to go through this guideline. There's some draft we have already developed, but this platform, actually this webinar will help us in seeing whether we are in track, and some of the points which are need to be taken care in this guideline that can emerge from this discussion and will help us in finalizing the guideline. So these are the initial remarks. Actually, we planned it much earlier.
Yeah.
Because of certain issues and this COVID challenges and all those things, this physical meeting could not be arranged, and ultimately we had this webinar. But I'm very happy to see that a lot of experts they have joined, and we have almost participants more than 100 in numbers, and it will be a difficult time to the organizer how to means Ramchandra Saab to manage how to complete the discussion within 2 hours and to get the most relevant points, and those will be useful to us in designing the and finalizing the guideline. So actually, Dr. Dalwai Saab, he was supposed to be here before lunchtime, but he had some other meetings, and so maybe he was having lunch slightly delayed, and he just rang me that he's on the way, and maybe might have, he has already reached. He has just reached. Actually, I'm just asking my staff to get it connected. Just give me 1 minute, okay?
Sure,
I'm just
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Most welcome. Yeah. Thanks, Raj Saab, for putting us on the track in some sense. As I briefly mentioned, NREGA has already initiated the process of drafting the guidelines. They have initiated this process, and as mentioned, a draft is already there with them. I think this particular webinar is expected to continue the process. Before we get Ashok ji onto our panel, I have a small suggestion to all panelists. I hope you all have your schedule with you, and the time allocated for panelists is about 7 to 8 minutes total time. After 5 minutes of your input and your presentation, I would like to mention that 3 more minutes or 2 more minutes. I request you to complete your presentation within that period. All of you have long experience. I know it's very difficult to summarize everything, put your suggestions in a brief manner, but I'm sure you're all very smart and you can follow time discipline and then definitely follow this particular small guideline for us, so that we are able to complete this within this 2 hours time.
Ram Dr. S.S. Chaudhary, DDG NRM ICR is also there. So one of the esteemed panelists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chaudhary Saab just joined? Or? Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Joined.
How are you, sir? Yeah.
DDG sir, Dr. Sir, namaskar.
Namaste, I'm already there. I'm watching everything. Fine.
Thank you, sir.
We are just waiting for Ashok. Good evening, sir.
Yes, yes. Good evening. Sorry, I got late. I was in some other meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
How
No,
are
it's
you?
understandable. We are all fine, sir. Thanks very much. You are just in time, not little bit late.
Yeah.
We just has initiated our webinar about 10 minutes back, sir.
Okay.
We just had a brief introduction about the webinar, and Dr. Ratsav has explained what has already happened in the process of developing guidelines for watershed program with
Yes.
DOLR and a core committee and a draft is ready. He just explained what has already happened in this context. We are
Yes.
hoping that this joint webinar from RRA Network and NRAA would strengthen this whole process. And
Yes.
we are eagerly looking forward to your opening remarks, sir. And
Okay.
you have about 10 minutes time. Sorry, I need to indicate this to all panelists. You and Ravindra have 10 minutes time. Rest of them have 8 minutes time. So I request you to,
Okay.
share your thoughts and guide the entire process. And after 8 minutes, I'll indicate that you have to.
Yeah, that is better.
This is open to you, sir.
Huh.
Dr. Ashok ji for the participants.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and nice to see our different friends from different parts of the country, all concerned with the agriculture systems of our country, and more particularly the farmers from the rain-fed areas, where the farming systems still have a lot of potential to be harvested, and there is ample opportunity to improve the lives of the farmers and everyone else who depends on agriculture for livelihood options in different ways. I am supposed to share my thoughts on what exactly are the critical concerns of watershed development of approach in times to come. To begin with, I would like to share that we need to look at agriculture through a new lens. So far, we have been looking at agriculture as an inevitable option because people had nothing else to do. Even today, of course, we see a situation where the farmers have little option on account of the fact that our other segments of the economy, including manufacturing and service sectors, failing to absorb the huge density of population in our country. The working population is as high as 46% of the total rural population, as against 35% in the urban centers. Now, when we talk of 46% of the rural population, it is as high as 88 crore. That is the total population. That means the demand for jobs is very high. When I suggest that we need to have a reoriented look at agriculture, I think we should be looking at in terms of job creation, because jobs which are gainful will generate good incomes. Incomes go to improve the living standards of the people. We therefore should start now looking from the human perspective and more than just the production of food. That is the first concern. Second, however, the reorientation required in agriculture as elsewhere in our country is to have an ecosystem approach. Normally, our policy planning, our program designing, as well as implementation at different levels have been unfortunately compartmentalized. We always look at it in terms of sequential approach. When we have a sequential approach, we tend to fail more than succeed because all these systems are organically linked. And therefore, if we want agriculture system to succeed in terms of generating employment, we should be looking at an ecosystem approach. And that suggests the need that think of the interest of farmers, think of the interest of consumers of the country, and think of the demand of the ecology for sustainability. Only then can we have a long-term sustainable approach to production as well as generation of employment. So first thing first, that today on account of the practices that we have adopted in agriculture over the last 70 years, our production environment has got disturbed. And as manifest by two important critical factors of production, namely water and soil, we see that in terms of water, there's a drawdown and the groundwater has run down terribly. And unless we're able to rejuvenate groundwater, we'll not be able to maintain our surface water in the rivers and rivulet system. And when it comes to water, we have already seen that the per capita availability of water has come down drastically from 5,500 cubic meters sometime in 1951 to around 1,400, and it is expected to further come down to 1,100 by over the next 10 years. So if the situation is decreasing per capita availability of water and simultaneously compromise of the quality of water, then agriculture stands to lose. So we need to look at the way of rejuvenating water. And its cousin soil, which is very important as a medium of production. We now know the most important negative impact on agriculture in terms of soil has been the loss of soil organic carbon. Now, soil organic carbon is the most critical factor because it determines the structure of the soil, the fertility of the soil, and then ensures that the nutrients that we add to the soils are utilized properly. Unfortunately, we have a situation where the soil organic carbon has depleted, and now the average in India stands between 0.1 to 0.5. And there are very few soils that have more than 1 or 3 or 4. So we need to start looking at rebuilding the soil organic carbon. So if we want to do these two things, we need to certainly look at a watershed approach in the sense that we start treating from ridge to valley based on the hydrological study of a particular system. And when we talk about watershed approach now, we know the technology. Yes, one can always debate around the ratio between the biological interventions and the engineering treatments. Certainly, we'd agree that given the current context, there has to be more emphasis on the biological nature of treatment vis-a-vis the engineering treatment. However, the engineering treatments cannot be forgotten because some of them are inevitable in terms, for example, of building, let's say, gully plugs or bunding, contour bunding, or building water harvesting structure. So some of the mechanical measures will become important. But then since biological interventions are more in the nature of soft components, people have neglected those things. But I think they are extremely important. And I will not go into what the detail or different aspects of biological treatments are. The related issue is, how do we ensure that sustainability happens? I think that is the greatest concern. We have had very successful treatment of projects, but then we have not been able to sustain them over a long period of time. If sustainability is the concern, then I think the only way is to ensure that people own up these watersheds, and people's ownership will come from making them understand that watershed approach is in their interest. How do you create that incentive in them that there's no alternative but to go in for comprehensive, integrated, organically linked watershed approach to treatment of the soils and water and the life in general? And I guess that in order to create an interest among everybody, we need to ensure that different categories of people in that watershed develop a commonality of interest. And that means that not just the landed class, but also the landless class, including those who may not be dependent directly on farms, but practice their own artisanry, they all must be brought together and diagnosed in terms of what their interests are and ensure how the watershed can meet their demand. Let's say if we talk of carpentry, for example, is it that we can supply them bamboo by growing bamboo there? Or we supply agave, for example, for them to take up certain activities. Just an example. So the short point is that we must create a common interest in the enriched sustenance of the watershed approach. So if we would like to do that, then the watershed planning has to be well thought of. It has to be ground specific. It has to be very situation specific. and then I'm sure we'll be able to create that interest and take it forward. As
you
we
have 2
do
more
these
minutes,
things,
sir.
yes, as we do these things, we must teach them the management practices. Today, the management practices will come once again from giving them the modern management practices, professional approach to managing the water resources, the soil resources, the canopy cover, the pasture lands, etc., etc., and simultaneously deployment of technology. Because the simple technology deployed, they can be effective tools in their hand to manage them effectively. For example, how do they measure the water that is available and then utilize it, for example? Can they have a piezometer to continuously what is the status of groundwater in that watershed so that they get caution? So I think the concerns today are to reorient agriculture system from the perspective of farmers, from the perspective of consumers in terms of nutritive requirements, from the perspective of ecology, as a sustainable approach, and then all.
Hello. Hello.
Cooperation happens through farmer producers organization and such other government.
Hello. Hello. हेलो
अश्विन मेरा फोन बज रहा था।
हेलो हेलो we lost Ashok ji, are you there? Ashok ji?
I think we lost.
I think we lost the connection with Sri Ashok ji. Sorry about it. I think he was just about to conclude his.
Close. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Ram is here.
You can go ahead with others.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We just lost touch with Sri Ashok ji.
Go with the next.
Oh, sorry. We got you, sir. Sir, please continue. We lost you in between. Hello.
Ram, Ashok sir has said that to continue. He was just concluding that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
You continue. I concluded that. You can continue.
Yeah. We are sorry, sir. We just missed you in the last concluding points. Thanks for your input. Yeah. You want to repeat any particular statement?
No, not at all. You can go ahead. You can go ahead. I'm done. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks very much. He was just asking all of us to think that a different approach is required for rainfed agriculture. In that context, watershed have to be reinvent themselves. That's the broad message he was giving to us. Now I request Ravindra to share his presentation, basically to indicate what are the broad challenges or what are the broad contours in which the new watershed programs have to be developed. Can I have Ravindra now?
Yeah, Ram, can you see the screen?
Yeah, we are able to see the screen. Yes.
Make full screen, please. Yeah, it is done.
Okay. So,
Ravindra, you have 10 minutes. After 8 minutes, I'll indicate to you.
Sure. So we are sort of celebrating 25 years of watershed program. We all remember fondly Mr. Yugendra's contribution to this, bringing the whole soil conservation to a comprehensive participatory watershed development framework. My purpose is just to set broad contours, and Dr. Ashok Dal has made it very comprehensive, and he put forth the macro perspective of why you should relook at the whole thing. Let me also reiterate the whole thing so that we have some discussion points. If you look at the 95 guidelines, which is the basis for the watershed program, And later on, whatever amendments that took place, they're all only changing incrementally some parts of it, some proportions of it, and adding few components. But basic structure remained intact. So if you look at the 95 guidelines, there are 3 sections of it. One is the concerns, the contextual concerns at that time were droughts and degradation, employment generation is one set. Second is moving from department implementation to participatory paradigm, where sustained community action, O&M, operation maintenance, and technology and institutional solutions. These are the second rung of issues. The third is how you bring resource poor and landless, and then these people to the forefront of development, sharing the benefits of the development. So this is the overarching concerns at that time. So the strategy that embedded in the program, you can see the strategy running through the Watershed program, is that the core of the investment is in soil and water conservation and community institutions. And if you, the assumption is that if you invest on these 2 things, then there will be automatically benefits in the production, benefits in livelihoods, and then the resilience of the system will develop. So sort of, this kind of a paradigm has made production and then livelihoods as an adjunct to investments in soil conservation. So you can see that over the 25 years, the entire program, if you take the investments in the Watershed program, majority of the investments are going towards soil and water conservation, and that too engineering and mechanical structures that Dalwai has mentioned that. So this is the existing framework in which the Watershed program investments are structured. Institutions were envisaged in the structure of this thing, and how investments are made. So, but if you actually position the current context in it, then we have a completely different context. 25 years after this, one, we have the security of incomes has been a major issue. Growth and farmers' income has come to the center stage, so much so that the ministry has renamed itself as farmers' welfare as one of its core this thing. And post-COVID, nutrition and immunity has become a prominently come into the market. There are large community consumer acceptance on nutritive products, and then the whole consumer demand has been shifting. Climate change resilience we are all fighting with, and then production of rain-fed crops and livestock systems is at the national stage. The oilseeds production and all that are becoming a major issue, and LDN and all that, as I'm saying, land degradation and the huge soil crisis, the organic carbon crisis that Dr. Dalwai mentioned. And in the groundwater, we all know the aquifers are failing and all that. So how do we reimagine the watershed development in this context, in the current challenges? How it addresses this? What are the drivers? What should be the technical and institutional approach? I think this is something that we need to reframe, relook at. I mean, this picture actually paraphrases the whole issue. You see the barren, almost barren land, highly degraded land, and though it looks like innovation, it shows the pathetic situation of lack of investments, lack of draft power for farmers to cultivate. And in this kind of a situation, however much you do soil and water conservation, you are going to benefit only incrementally. So it's not going to substantially change the land, the quality of the land, and the farmers or the productivity or the farmers' income. It will be only incrementally adding it. So earlier in the all watershed programs, in such a situations, mostly the works taken up were soil and water conservation. Later on, NAREGA also has taken up those investments. But without having this complementary investments on farmers' institutions, making certain kind of machinery or draft power, making available to the farmers, and diversifying the production system from such a monocrop systems to something like this, very diverse kind of a production. So if you look at these two contrasting pictures, these are two agriculture crop systems. So if you actually compare how much of rainfall each system can actually harvest and then keep it in the profile, how much of biomass that it can add to the soil to increase its organic matter or organic systems, stimulate the organic life systems in the soil, and what kind of security this kind of a crop systems bring in, then that shows the paradigm change. One is One is only on soil conservation, assuming that the soil conservation increases moisture, and moisture increases, then the crop productivity increases. There are agriculture department programs that dovetail where there could be improved seeds of groundnut that increases productivity. That kind of a paradigm to actually looking at soil as a living system and crop system as a driver for building up the soil productivity, building up farmers' income, building up the ecosystem. So this kind of a change that that we need to relook at. And then the new opportunities are emerging. Like I said, the consumer choices are changing, and natural farming is gaining ground. And then a lot of emphasis on producers organizations. We have to move from these committee-centric watershed institutions to business-centric producer organizations. And then the recent ordinances all are opening up markets. So how do we actually benefit out of these new realities, new opportunities, and dovetail into the architecture of watershed development programs is something that we need to look at. So these three concentric circles. Earlier it used to be blue and brown, but now can we encompass a green around that? So can we achieve conservation not through just mechanical structures, but through biomass, crop biomass, and then biomass in the commons, regenerating the commons, regenerating the production system in the commons, that kind of a systemic change. And then harvesting rainfall through biomass and storing it into the rich organic soils. Now, can we move toward that? That kind of a biomass can generate products, agriculture products, fruits, livestock products, and then can build production systems, and through the farmers produce organizations can build value-added systems. The paradigm shift is present essentially looking at biomass as a driver. So if you look at the right side, this is kind of things that we need to integrate. How you look at water for protective irrigation, for saving the crop from drought, and then the community governance of water, water sharing. Crispin calls it stewardship of water. We'll hear more about it, and then solving the issues of drought cover, and then soil and water conservation, physical structures aiding in regeneration, not being the driver but as a support system. Driver being the biomass. So all these laid on a business organizations of farmers. Now, can we actually?
Ravindra, you have 2 more minutes.
Yeah. So business organization, this kind of a framework. Now, if you want to build this, like Ashok Dal has put it in a much broader conceptual frame, then what is that we need to do? And then at the national level, this is Dr. Russ's slide, where so if you take all the crops, the rain-fed crops contribute the largest, and then we need to increase productivity of these crops. That is a national requirement. And then if you look at land degradation, then 35%, 31% of the agricultural land is degraded, of which 85% is rain-fed land. So out of the 26 million hectares, they need to invest on rain-fed lands. If you look at land degradation neutrality investments, and if you look at current investments, it's very pathetic investments in watershed programs. Particularly if you look at most of the agriculture investments are going towards farmers' income, DBTs, and input subsidies. And then once it is moved to watershed program, moved to PMKSY, AABP has taken the toll, and then watershed investments are consistently declining. This is the graph that shows how watershed investments are plummeting over time. We need to relook at this. And in this context, we need to look at the two major challenges. One is, what are the new drivers? What are the new institutional architecture? How you imagine the new paradigm into a watershed program design? This is one. Second major challenge is how you find investments, how we get more and more investments to come to watershed development programs. I think this is where the challenge lies, and then restructuring and reimagining watershed programs. I hope all the presenters will give a lot of insights into these aspects. Thank you, Ram.
Yeah. Just in time, thanks for putting those two concluding statements, challenges. Basically, both Ashok ji as well as Ravindra reiterated and reinforced each other's statements, the relevance of watershed program and the newness that we need to bring into this new guidelines that are being conceptualized at this point of time. Now I request panelists, to share their ideas and their broad thinking about watershed program, given those challenges which are already indicated. And now can I request Surya Kumar from NABARD. Surya Kumar is associated with for a long period. NABARD has been an important player in watershed programs in the country, and we look forward to hear from you, Surya. You have 8 minutes time, and I'll indicate to you after 5 minutes. Surya.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me, and thank you for having NABARD. Over the past several years, we have invested around 2,300 odd crores in 23 lakh hectares. And the dilemma before us is, with the money which we have, should we do more watersheds or should we do something very different? This is a dilemma which we have before us. And as some of you might already be knowing, like we are also vested with the responsibility of creating around 4,000 FPOs in the mega project Government of India has launched, along with NCDC and SFAC. When we put our head together, we thought we should really do something very different. That's what Dalwai Sahab was saying, and that's what Ravindra was telling just before, like should we not do from a different perspective? So what we are thinking is go back to those projects which we have already invested. When we invested in 23 lakh hectares, approximately 2,300, 2,400 crore rupees. So what really happened? Primarily, we looked at from the point of soil and water conservation. We added an element of agriculture. It all depends upon state to state. There's a huge amount of variation. Now, we are looking at these projects to start. How do we really implement the sustainable agriculture? How do we reduce the cost of cultivation to the farmers? Like we have before. The reason why we're talking about this is we ran one program with the help of KFW. We call it as KFW Soil Project. We picked up watersheds which are complete, and we did a little bit of topping up on soil health. We did a little bit of topping up on sustainable agriculture issues. Can we build in resilience in case the climate changes? The results have been pretty good. So we are thinking to look at all these projects to add an element of agroecological aspects, add an element of anything which reduces the cost of cultivation, and anything which enhances the income of the farmers. So we would also like to superimpose an FPO on an existing watershed or an existing Wadi project, and build on the social and natural capital which we have created. Some of it all of it is not in a pristine shape. We're very clear on that. Some of it has gone wrong. Like in some of the places, people have so-called saved the water, again have gone into water guzzling crops, and things have come back to normalcy. But still, in all these projects where we implemented, there is a strong element of maintenance fund. The maintenance fund is somehow sitting in the bank. No one is touching that. So the whole idea is we're trying to put all these things together. We are working on how do we make it into a program. In fact, we are looking for ideas. Anyone who could add to our thinking process, we would be too happy to take the feedback, take the advice, because we are looking at all these 23 lakh hectares to bring in all possible models together in one place, like an FPO on a sustainable agriculture, maybe reaching out to the market. We are also trying to add an element of credit, which it has not happened in such a big way. So end to end, we're trying to figure out how do we do it. It is still on the drawing board. We are just putting what we need to do. Any idea, any suggestion is extremely welcome. We will be too happy to take your feedback and build upon this. We believe instead of doing new and more newer watersheds, because we are very clear, whatever projects which we do, we are not competing with anyone. We don't have a target that we have to do so many watersheds. We want to create a model. So we are going back to those projects and trying to create what best is possible.
You have 2 more minutes.
Thank you. I am complete.
Oh, good. Thanks, Surya. It's nice that both NABARD and Government of India are willing to rethink about watersheds and bringing several ideas together onto common design, common framework. I hope those challenges which Ravindra posed and those issues which Ashok ji raised are relevant to all of us. And there are several experiences that teach lessons to all of us from NABARD's experiences, particularly bringing FPOs as well as ecological perspectives into watershed program and challenges of sustainability. Thanks for all those inputs. I hope this webinar through RRA and NRA would also input into your design process. Now, can I request Sri Chaudhary ji from NRM, DDZ, NRM, ICAR? Sir, I request you to share from ICAR point of view, you look at watershed programs and what are the challenges from science perspective as well as from people's perspective. You have 5 minutes, 8 minutes time, 5 plus 3. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramchandru. Thank you, RRA and NRAA for inviting me. Dr. Ashok Dal and my esteemed panelist and my friend, Dr. Surya from NABARD. Thank you very much for the invite. And as the discussion is going on, and the ICR also thinks that there is a need to change in the mindset and complete thinking in developing the watershed in the coming generation. We cannot afford to have the same kind of business as usual approach for watershed development. Right in the beginning, I would like to share those days Mr. Ashok Dal was there as Additional Secretary in DAC when the PMKSY was taking a shape. So that time, when different components were subsumed, ICR has given very clear-cut views. When you are subsuming AIBP and more crop per drop and so many components, definitely after 5 years or 6 years, watershed will go on the backbench. And this is what exactly is happening. Because the investment priorities, the total developmental plan, and kind of commitments in front of the country that really requires rethinking right now. And therefore, what I understand, whatever positive impacts we had in watershed development programs in the past, that needs to be relooked and it needs to be reshaped for the future watershed programs. Now, right from Damodar Valley Development Project in 70s, or even before that, River Valley projects, and then 89 IWDP and many guidelines in between Hanumantrao Committee. You know very well the Haryali, after that Niranchal, and very recently Reward now, and all the institutions and all the organizations, they are working untiringly for development of watersheds in this country. The ICAR, through Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, erstwhile, which has a different name, but now it's called Indian Soil and Water Conservation, and also CREDA at Hyderabad and IISWC at Dehradun, through regional stations and countrywide network of AICRP centers, we are trying to address the issues in depths and dimensions for last 5 decades. The positive impacts, of course, soil loss, surface runoff, it has been reduced significantly. The irrigated area has increased in country. The net sown area, cropping intensity, productivity, yield, the benefit cost ratio, even organic carbon in select areas, we have seen all upward trends in these. But when we talk of the ecological benefits, it is not that only the soil organic carbon, but for us, the biggest challenge is the land degradation. Land degradation, when we have the target of land degradation, neutrality in the country, and the India is committed to UNCCD. Also in COP14, we have our commitments. We want to make 26 million hectare area, additional area, and we want to control the rate of degradation with the equalizing the rate of restoration of ecosystems. And one thing Dr. Dalwai has very correctly pointed out, the total planning is perfect. The technical backstopping is also perfect, but implementation, when implementation is compartmentalized, we need to have an ecosystem approach. Without whole ecosystem approach, probably if we move forward, then we may not be able to solve the future problems through watershed programs. And now some of the emerging issues in front of us. We have many success stories in watershed, but are we sharing experiences and lessons learned, or failure stories we have exposed to in the past, and what we have learned from them? Are we using the appropriate participatory processes? Are the developed technology producing the desired results? If not, then what is wrong and where is wrong? And to what extent can forests or forested watersheds play a role in sustaining and protecting the water supplies? Also, are the project activities sustainable and replicable? To what extent have adequate institutional, organizational, and legislative arrangements have been made? We are talking of community institutions or village institutions in place, but what we are getting, what benefits we are getting out of that? And are the required policy strategies in place? Yes. So we need to look at all these points. And for going into next generation watershed management programs, we have to see what is the scale effect and how we can enhance the stakeholders' involvement and their participation in this program. And without emphasis on soil and water, probably we cannot move forward, and we always talk of economic returns from there. But most amongst all these parameters and the variables I have told, we should have a long-term vision and long-term commitment for all the watershed programs, and very crystal clear idea or crystal clear micro plan, so that we can really draw the benefits out of these watersheds. And this watershed planning will be very successful if we take into consideration all these points and keep the climate change challenges in mind. My colleague, Dr. Ravindra Chari, will be there if any query or any suggestion is there. And ICR would be very happy to participate and shoulder to shoulder provide all the technical support to RRA and NRA in this endeavor. So thank you very much. My colleague Ravindra Chari will be there. I may have to join another meeting in next 5 minutes. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, sir. And happy to know that you reiterated some of the points from policy perspective, why watershed programs, when they got subsumed into other programs, how they lost their importance. You highlighted that point. You also mentioned very positive results of watershed programs, which we are not celebrating adequately, perhaps. That's what you mentioned. And also the need for people-centric programs, and is really delivering the promise. Those are the issues that you raised, sir. Thanks very much. Can I now request Pramathesh Ambasta from BRLF? BRLF has been supporting so many state governments and partnership with NGOs, civil society organizations, particularly with a focus on MGNREGA employment guarantee scheme and watershed programs. Can we have your inputs and thoughts, Pramathesh? And you have 5+2 time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ram. First of all, thank you for having me here. I would just like to express my agreement with some of the earlier views. Ravindra encapsulated all that very well in his presentation. Yes, and I think it is time now that, especially when we look at areas which are drylands or tribal areas in India, we need to move beyond the normal or the earlier watershed approach of soil and water conservation, and think in terms of a larger livelihoods perspective, focusing on agriculture, livelihood diversification, especially in the tribal drylands of India. And here, a market orientation in terms of agriculture, working with farmer producer organizations, linking them with markets is an extremely important thing. So, and in BRLF also, we are trying to do that. See, when we talk about a watershed program, what we are essentially talking about is an approach, which over 25 years, I'm happy to at least observe that across India, this approach is something which has got embedded, you know. So I think the approach is important, and why initially also in the earlier days of the watershed program, eventually the idea was that the communities with whom we were working would be moving towards a more sound agricultural regime. I think it is important to have a more explicit focus on the incomes and the agriculture output and the livelihood diversification part of it now. And that is the approach that BRLF has been following on fairly large scale. The only difference that I would like to point out is that BRLF works with civil society organizations. And here I feel that the role of civil society organizations in making the watershed program a success in the past and in the future needs to be underlined once more. So I hope that this role not only is considered properly, but is also given a deepening and widening of this role. I would like to mention here that of particular interest to BRLF has been the way partnerships between civil society organizations and state governments have shown the way forward. And I think these kinds of partnerships are the way to go. And in this context, what I would like to say is I was struck by one slide in Ravindra's presentation where he's talking about the budgetary allocations to different programs. But when we look at Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA, I think it is an overarchingly huge program, and in which now potentially we have about 1 lakh crore rupees available. And for the tribal areas of India, the Central Indian Tribal Belt, which is the geography of focus for Bharat Rural Livelihoods Foundation, with which I work, I think Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA offers a huge space for us to do the kind of work, to lay the basis for the kind of work that we want to do. And I would like to see a greater convergence between a watershed program and Mahatma Gandhi and NREGA. So how is that to happen? For instance, if we talk about agricultural, agricultural incomes, farmer producer organizations, and so on. One of the things that we see is, say in West Bengal, where we have a large partnership with the Rural Development Department of the state, or Chhattisgarh, again, where we have a very large partnership. Our partnerships are with the Rural Development Department. We would like them to expand to other departments so that we can get convergence in place. But how do we do that? And does the existing kind of, thinking in terms of departments help this approach? And if I don't think it does, because while we work on creating the necessary water infrastructure, the next step is logically to move on to agricultural programs, agricultural paradigms such as no pesticide, organic, etc., that what people are talking about. But how do we do that? And how do we involve the agriculture department in a program which is actually that of the Rural Development Department? This is something that we need to think. The other thing that we need to think about is capacities. I feel that there is a need to enhance capacities, especially in the kind of geography that we are talking about, the rainfed geography, the Central Indian Tribal Belt. Especially the capacity of state players needs to be increased very significantly. Right now we have, like I said, a very large allocation on Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA, but are the people on the ground equipped? Even if we talk about watershed development in the context of Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA through leverage of MGNREGA, are the people on the ground really equipped to discharge that, to make that possible? And if not, then how do we do that? And there again, I would reiterate that the role of civil society is extremely important in partnering with state governments. So when we envision a new watershed guidelines, could we think of something like this, that in terms of resource allocation for, say, traditional, water conservation activities, we could think of something like Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA coming in. But for any other kind of activities which we want to build on top of it, the livelihoods activities, for instance, agriculture, farmer producer organizations, creating institutions of communities with a focus on livelihoods and incomes. Maybe the watershed program could come in as in convergence mode to help make this happen. I mean, in terms of its accumulated institutional expertise and knowledge, and
Sorry, you're crossing your time.
yes, to help make these programs in Mahatma Gandhi NAREGA work out well. So I'll conclude here. Thank you.
Thanks, Pramitesh. You brought some very important points to the forum. One is on role of civil society organizations. Hello? Am I audible? Yeah. The role of civil society organizations and partnerships, how they can partner with state governments and vice versa, and the need for building capacities of various partners, particularly in tribal context, and also how different projects can be layered over Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme and bring several other departments, how to facilitate this whole convergence. I think you brought all those issues from your experience. Thanks for that. Now, can I request from Samaj Pragati Sahyog in Madhya Pradesh, who did exemplary work on watershed programs and FPOs. Viju, can we have you? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah,
We can
okay.
see you
Yeah,
also.
I was on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, you have 5 + 2 minutes.
Yeah, just give me a warning when my time is up.
5 minutes.
So I am very happy to be here on celebrating the 25th year of Watershed Program in India. And as you know, it has been a very long journey. So I just go back to some of the numbers that may be useful in thinking about Watershed Program ahead. As you know, India has something like 328 million hectares of land, of which 140 million hectares is supposed to be under cultivation. It's supposed to be net sown area. And about 56% of that, according to the latest figures put out by Dr. Rath and many others, is supposed to be rain-fed under rain-fed production systems. In addition to that, we have a huge amount of land, something like 52 million hectares or something, which we normally call wasteland. Now, wasteland is not really waste, because wasteland is what supports our livestock systems. It partly caters to a lot of household needs, a lot of useful products are derived from there. It's a huge amount of land which is lying there, which supports livelihoods in many, many ways. And in addition to these two components, there is a huge portion of land which is under forest, which has gone under severe degradation. So if you put all these things together, I think the total figure I got was somewhere around 90 to 100 million hectares, one can say, will be the area in the country which requires some kind of intervention, public investment of the nature of what we can call watershed. And looking at the last 25 years history, if you put together, what has been the actual achievement? How much of this particular area have we covered? We did some exercise when we were writing this past strategy report, the new rental guidelines and so on. That time, the percentage was somewhere around 10 to 12% or something, I think. Now, I would be surprised, even after so many passage of so much time, whether we would have reached even 20% of the total area, which could potentially be treated by watershed. So there's a huge area still which is available for treatment. That is my first point. So watershed scope is very, very huge even now, even with all the treatment, all the guidelines, and as Ravindra's table showed, investment has been steadily coming down over the last 5 to 10 years. I'll just come to that point now. So there is a huge area still available which requires investment of a certain type, which can actually add to people's lives and livelihoods. And if you look at watershed program in the recent experience of watershed program, there are 4 major shifts one can see which has happened, partially because of which the merger of the program with the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, PMKSY. First one is a move away from conservation towards irrigation. As you know, the context of the watershed program, if you look at it, they started with the view that people have constructed a lot of irrigation structures, stop dams, and even larger dams without any attention being given to the catchment areas. Now, catchment areas are hugely neglected. So the starting point of the watershed program was that we should go to the catchment areas and start conservation work there. Now, from there, we have actually turned, I would say, 180 degrees behind, and we are now going back towards irrigation, neglecting catchment altogether. That has been the experience of the last 5 to 10 years of IWMP program. And again, you look at the same the point of view of agriculture. The emphasis has been much more on productivity rather than sustainability. Sustainability, I mean the stability of income. When you talk about farmer income, it doesn't matter to a farmer whether he gets a surplus income in a year or no. What he needs is he or she needs is a consistent or stable income over a period of time. So the movement away from sustainability towards productivity has happened. And concomitant to these two, the third major deviation has been an increased focus on private land and neglect of public land. Actually, the catchments are, most of them are public land, and the public investment of watershed nature is now increasingly being focused on irrigation, which is focused on private land. And within the program, there has also been a major shift towards material intensive work. Watershed program, when it came up in the beginning, one of the major arguments in favor of it was it creates enormous employment generation potential. Now that potential is being gradually eroded because more and more material-oriented works are coming in, and therefore the labor component of the whole program is going down. So these are the deviations which are happening, which need to be corrected in my view. And I fully agree with Ravindra that this new framework which we should be looking at should primarily focus on soil and water. There are lots of comments on the chat box. I was just looking at it. Many of them are pointing out to the decline in soil organic carbon. Some of them even mentioned the water guzzling crops which have come up, which is destroying the agriculture sector and so on. The overall outcome of the last 20, 30 years of experience of what we call green revolution in Indian agriculture, if you actually look at it, the balance sheet is heavily tilted in terms of severe exploitation or erosion of soil health and soil fertility, and decline of water, which is, we all know how groundwater resources have got affected. So bringing back the soil, water, and agriculture continuum and making that into the focus, rejuvenation of soils as a primary objective of a watershed program, and building sustainable or stable livelihoods on the basis of that. Not just productivity enhancement, but creation of sustainable livelihoods, stable farmer incomes. That could be the new focus of the whole watershed program, the way we can conceive it in future. So the linkage of watershed, conservation, soil water conservation, and agriculture.
Finished, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Two more minutes.
Yes, thank you. So the linkage between soil water conservation and improvement of soil health program within RRA, we have a theme called soil living soils. We are part of that scheme, in which we try to develop a 3M framework, which is organic matter, microbes, and soil moisture. If these three are present in the soil health will be maintained. So how that can, watershed program can help in that, and leading from that on to agriculture and further stabilizing livelihoods. I think this should be the focus of the program for the years to come, from the experience which has happened. And there's a lot more investment required. The scope is there, and a lot more money need to come in also. The declining trend of the recent times has to be reversed. And lastly, I would also mention the point that Pramtesh just now mentioned. Watershed there's a watershed program. We talk about IWP or something, program like that. There's also something called a watershed approach, which has become a kind of a accepted kind of approach in many programs, including at times the work of soil, the forest department, and much more so in MGNREGA. So using MGNREGA funds and doing planning on a watershed basis can actually help take this agenda of building soil health and agriculture along with protecting our water resources forward. So I think kind of linkage with NREGA, or what you call kind of what is the term? Convergence with NREGA, the much used term called convergence. We have that. At least bring that watershed approach into MGNREGA. So it goes beyond a program called IWP, it becomes a larger approach. I think that is the way forward. I think we're going, learning from the history of last 25 years. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Viju. You brought several important points, particularly 3M concept, which has been experimented in RRA context for a long period. How to integrate that into watershed programs with a variety of other convergence related opportunities and agenda that has to go into it. Thanks very much for those inputs. Now, can I request Sachin Boja from Development Support Center? Sachin and others have worked for a long period on watershed programs with variety of partners, including CSR-based funding on watershed programs, apart from government-funded watershed programs. We'd like to listen to you, Sachin. I hope you are there.
I'm there, very much there, Ram, not to worry. Thanks
Please,
a lot to RRA and NREGA to give DSC an opportunity to discuss its views on the watershed. It's been a long journey, as we all know, 25 years, and we've lost many of the stalwarts, Yugandarji, Anil Bhai, Ishwaran, and others. And many of us, including Ram, and we started our journey with these stalwarts. We were lucky to have their guidance. And we are still fortunate that we have people like Aloysius and Ravi and others also there to, guide us. So with these opening remarks, I would just like to flag in a few points that we have learned recently over the last few years on the designing of the watershed program. One is that the watershed, the earlier one, we used to have some 5,000 hectares of plan and about 10 watersheds. Now, I don't think that is any longer relevant. You need to pick up a sub-basin of about at least 20,000 to 25,000 hectares. So even if you want to do an FPO there, it becomes, you get the economies of scale. So one is that a sub-basin approach should be there, and all the other programs, be it the participatory groundwater management program or NAREGA or your minor irrigation schemes, the command area of the tanks and all that, they should be a part of that sub-basin and watershed treatment that should be done. So that is my first point. Second, if you look at, because DSC is working in about 900 villages now in 4 states, if you look at the impact of COVID and climate change in irrigated and rain-fed areas, obviously rain-fed areas were the worst off. And rain-fed areas, particularly small and marginal farmers, women and tribal farmers. And what we realized is that they needed 3 things. One is the domestic water, second is employment, and third is social security. And we realized that unless we integrate these 3 into the watershed program, we will be again only focusing on those who have the land, and they will be kind of, again, there will be high inequities within them. So for domestic water, what we did was to integrate the rain roof water harvesting structures at the household level. You looked at the whole issue of recharge, recycle, and reuse. Earlier, we had done a lot of study in the 4 states of Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, and others for the Watershed Development Fund, as Surya mentioned. And you find, nowhere will you find that there are no structures. So many of the structures are there, they are neglected. And therefore, there is need for repair, renovation, and restoration of these structures. Even in places like Nandurbar, that is what we took up through NAREGA. And even WDF, you had at that time, 2010, we did a study, 200 watersheds, there were about 23 crores lying unutilized. And the structures were, not being repaired, while only 5% of the WDF was used at that time. So that is my second point, that you need to integrate the domestic water concerns, employment concerns through NAREGA, and social security concerns. AKRSP and DAC did a very good program on the Gramin Susashan project, where we, worked with the panchayats to enhance their capacities and improve access to government schemes on social security and soil, on education, health, and employment to the marginalized section. So that GSP, the whole thing, which even BRLF also does with its partners, I think that should be an integral part of the watershed program, because they are the worst of the climate change and COVID. In terms of climate change, we also realize that most of our parameters look at productivity enhancement, but we do not look at, how to look at, so therefore there is an increase of supply that we are looking at, not demand side management of water and resources. And DSC, we looked at their adaptation through introduction of new wheat varieties. We worked with the agriculture universities, and we introduced new wheat varieties which were temperature resistant and also water resistant. They require 2 waterings less. Thirdly, on this whole mitigation, agriculture and animal husbandry, you need to integrate it with your agroforestry, so that, the emissions, So that is the second point I would like to make. Third is this whole integration of your natural resource management program with your production systems and your enterprise. Unless these three are integrated, you will go in three different directions. And NRM, we will talk about conserving water and improving our water tables. Enterprise will go another way, and your production system, will only talk about productivity enhancement and all that stuff. So how do you integrate these three systems, and particularly your FPO? So we think that there should be three verticals in a watershed. The first vertical should look at the whole issue of village institutions like farmer clubs. Then they can become into collection centers and the FPC. Second vertical could be on the SHGs, where women could play a major role. They could have cluster federations, and then you have the micro enterprise.
You finished 5 minutes. You have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Yeah, I'll be completing that, Ram, not to worry. And the third is the watershed committee, which then gets into a federation and a sub-basin. Like, many of the rivers that we see, Meghal and others by AKRSP, have been revived through this kind of thing. So we should have three verticals in any watershed. One which looks at the natural resources, second looks at the production systems, and third which looks at the enterprise, and with so that is the third point that I would like to make. And the whole focus should be from water to wealth, to go from conserving water, soil health being the major thing, where many of the speakers have already said that. And how do you kind of collaborate, network, and build the capacities of the actors? Because major players are there. Private sector is a major player. Water quality is becoming a major issue in the watersheds. But nobody seems to be really looking at the water quality issues, because increasing use of pesticides and fertilizers is having an impact directly on the groundwater quality, not only just on availability. So how do you integrate water quality into your whole system, build the capacities of the people to look at these three verticals, and enhance livelihoods through natural resource management program? That is what I feel needs to be done for the next generation of watersheds. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sachin. You brought several important points, including welfare of poor people, particularly women and maybe landless families, in terms of their entitlements. Apart from that, you also indicated what kind of institutional arrangement can bring that, and then three verticals in terms of trust that is necessary currently. Thanks for those inputs. Now, can I invite Crispin Lobo and Water have been working for a long period, almost 30 years plus, on watershed programs with variety of partners in several states of India. And they have innovated on several issues, including bringing climate change agenda into watershed programs. Can we have you, Crispin? Please switch on your video, and we'd like to listen from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You have 5 plus 2 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. I see in the past, you see, watershed had a very single focus, that is increase agricultural productivity, and therefore water was the main thing. How do you capture as much as possible? But today, we need to bring in 4 perspectives into this whole business of watershed development. One is ecosystems. We realize that everything is interrelated, and if we do not take care of this foundational base of ecosystem, which is the base of watersheds, it's not going to work. Next thing is, of course, income increase for farmers as well as for local communities. Third is we need to look at it from the perspective of sustainability. That means the future. And which means, of course, managing the commons, which is not only natural resources, but particularly water, and that to groundwater, soil health and biodiversity. And fourthly, we need to look at it from the lens of resilience and adaptation, because climate change and market volatility is now a way of life. It's inevitable. And the focus of all these, bringing these perspectives together, is, I would submit, to bring about attitudinal and behavioral change of people and communities, with the purpose of building both resilience and adaptive capacities of local communities and people living in a particular region. So at the end of it, these 4 perspectives need to be brought together to facilitate and incentivize behavioral change to build adaptive and resilience capacities. Number 1. Number 2, while implementation of watershed projects can micro level in terms of its planning and therefore resource management, we need to take a wider scale, probably between 20 to 25,000 hectares instead of just 1,000 or so, because of hydrological linkages. So upstream, downstream linkages have to be henceforth factored in large-scale watershed development programs. Otherwise, we could run into huge negative or adverse externalities which could cause social and political backlash also. So we need to keep in mind all these stakeholders in both the upstream and downstream approaches. The third thing is, it's fine to capture as much rainwater wherever you can, to the extent that it also meet hydrological demands both upstream and downstream. The focus should now be on managing better in terms of effective use as well as productivity of water use, be it surface, be it soil moisture, be it stored water, or be it underground aquifer water. We need to really work out ways in which demand management becomes a focus. Now we also have to keep in mind climate change as well as market volatility, because that's going to screw up everything good that we do above. We need to really factor that, and we need to use a lot of technologies right down to the village level to be able to manage the synergies as well as the negative outcomes of these various subsystems that are interacting often at odds with each other, number one. Number two, given the challenges today and the complexity of situations around us, unless we collaborate across sectors, that means government, private sector, CSOs, technical institutions, unless we really collaborate, we're not going to be able to achieve much today in terms of sustainability of watershed projects, or even in terms of optimal productivity gains that we can achieve. We need to do it, therefore, also at scale, and we need to focus on specific regions or geographies. Why geography? You need a certain size for things to really play out into their full potential. For instance, if you talk of farmer-producer companies, they're not going to be viable with just one or two watersheds. Maybe you need to have something like 30,000 hectares, a catchment of 30,000 hectares, 40,000 hectares. You need these kind of scales to be able to generate synergies, as well as to see impact, and therefore also then develop best practices for behavioral changes, which can be emulated and upscaled. Now, what are we in water doing? We've been working on, of course, on the supply side part of for watershed for a long time, but now, since quite some years, now over a decade and a half, we've been working on the climate change aspects and its implications. So into watershed development, into water stewardship, which includes water budgeting, crop planning, productivization, improving the efficiency of water use, including groundwater and aquifer management. We've done quite considerable work, both in the conceptual level as well as at the practical level. And it's available, that approach and technology is available. The other thing is into climate smart, or rather climate resilient agriculture, which is also nature friendly or eco-friendly. Considerable work has been done in that regard, particularly in the area of agrometeorology, where we have been working with the ICR system, as well as the IMD, to generate crop weather advisories to farmers coming down right to the block level. And recently we launched an app, an Android-based app called Farm Precise, which actually allows a farmer to get customized advisories to his field. To the farm. That a lot of development has happened in that regard. The beta version is launched, it's under test, but it's available, and it's in 3 languages right now. It is in Marathi, Hindi, and Telugu. So it's been launched in some parts of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and parts of Telangana also. And it's available. Anyone who wants to use it is free to do so. And we would welcome feedback because it can improve. That's one. And the other part is we're working on a water budgeting app, which has already undergone trials and will be available. But more importantly,
you finished 5 minutes. You finished 5 minutes.
Yeah, can I have 1 minute and I close up?
Yeah, 2 minutes you have.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah. Yes. And then, okay, 2 minutes, right. And then the whole issue of agrometallurgy and precision farming. We need to really move into application of technologies that smallholder farmers can use, which will involve, of course, managing soil moisture regimes, managing crops, and managing soil health. And this is, of course, and we are also expanding our portfolio of training programs and learning events for NGOs, for villages, and for development practitioners, which are always available. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Crispin, for bringing several important issues, including new apps in watershed context, which are customized for the agriculture precision-related issues. You brought scale as an important agenda, which will serve better ecosystem services, as well as some kind of institutional arrangements also to deal with upstream, lower stream kind of issues, and also help in better planning. Thanks for all those inputs to you, inputs from you. Thanks to you for that. Now, can I request Ravindra Chari Garu from CREDA CREDA has been working on rainfed agriculture, technology and science, variety of package of practices in dryland and also rainfed contest. We look forward to you, sir, to share your thoughts on new generation programs in rain-fed situations, rain-fed agriculture context in India.
Thank you very much, Nara and RRA, for this opportunity. Respected CEO Nara, then the esteemed panelists and also distinguished participants greetings from CREDA. I have a few points to share with you. Basically, this climate change and variability impacts are very much evident on agriculture and allied sectors. We have done an exercise where exactly the indications at the district level analysis show that there is a climate shift in about 27% of the total geographical area in India. And of course, this has a bearing on decisions on natural resource management, water resource planning, cropping pattern, and developing adaptation plans. NARA and CREDA have come up with information on prioritized rainfed districts. And of course, a policy framework is needed to select the next generation watersheds from these districts to develop climate adaptation action plans on mesoscale with climate proofing interventions. The new policy framework, the progression to climate smart watersheds, revisiting watershed resources mapping at mesoscale, delineating watershed clusters or spring sheds is needed across the ecosystems, whether it's arid or semi-arid or subhumid or perihumid ecosystems for agroecology specific interventions, investments, and institutional mechanisms. A prescriptive precision activities in climate smart watersheds are needed that match soil heterogeneity, weather or climate variability with adaptive planning for optimizing resources and investments. Use of historical and future climate information, as Mr. Krishna already mentioned, for micro-level agreement advisory services, which are very much important. And using advanced technology like IT, GIS, remote sensing extensively in planning, designing, implementation, monitoring, and impact is very much essential. Like Sujala project in Karnataka, preparation of LRA, land resource inventory, before implementation of the watershed development programs will be much useful in scientific watershed-based land use planning. And in this context, use of big data is another opportunity for a very effective program planning. I have a request that the government has to have open map policy. This is to extend, store, and generate watershed and land resource data, to collect summary data for the entire country, to equip with various thematic layers and master data for integrated systems. And of course, the socioeconomics are very much important. They should be given top priority and to be integrated in prioritizing, implementing, and monitoring the interventions with the relevant indicators for impact evaluation. Emphasis should also be on integrated crop, tree, animal systems based interventions in an integrated landscape approach with watershed-based institutions. Since the scope of the HARTI, this agroforestry systems in marginal lands owned by small and marginal farmers, where they are very resource poor, is very much limited, as their primary concern is for food for self requirement. So the planning for alternative employment for such resource poor farmers should be mandatory in next generation watersheds. Income and employment generating activities for enhancing livelihoods of small land owners and landless is vital, and it can be through watershed apprenticeships. We can kind of term watershed apprenticeships through FPOs. FPOs also can facilitate common resource centers for inputs, customizing of farm machinery for various operations, and also processing value addition. Coming to the water governance, water sharing, and water equity into watershed programs architecture, this is a very key challenging in operationalization of the next generation watersheds or spring sheds. Water is the natural capital, also should be considered as the national capital, particularly groundwater. The water governance and solutions for water sharing and water equity issues are agroecology specific and depend upon biophysical and socioeconomic settings and production systems. Therefore, there is a need to develop water governance guidelines and action plans for watersheding and water equity in a wider consultation with primary and secondary stakeholders. The successful examples where communities have evolved good and noteworthy practices, social norms for use of augmented resources, priority for drinking water, etc., are to be promoted in next generation watersheds. A single measure such as right to use only incidental rainfall by individual farmers and restricting all other water resources such as groundwater, stream water by farmers would enable better water management practices in watershed. Any interventions on streams should be carefully assessed for impact on existing downstreams. The last point I would like to mention here is that leveraging the strengths of the different organizations. Though the guidelines of existing watershed program ensure the involvement of institutions, it is more a customary statement. Except for few institutions, much meaningful involvement of various like that has not been really happened. So there's and of course, this is much less at state level also. So involvement of high-level scientific institutions in SLNA is also a mere formality. There is no link between institutions and DLNA at all district levels. Therefore, the roles and responsibility of involvement of the National Agriculture Research and Education System, like SAR institutes, SAs, KVKs, need to be really identified for meaningful role involvement at various levels like project sanctioning, technical backstop, monitoring, and evaluation. It may be mandated to include NARS institutions in NARA prioritized dominated rainfed districts in all watershed activities, including capacity building. The roles and responsibilities of various institutions need to be really clearly defined in the new programs, however, with adequate funding support for various activities. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and for your kind presence. Really, thank you very much. Thank you, Ravindra and Dr. Mr. Ramchandru for this excellent opportunity, and also I thank Mr. Rath.
Thank you very much, sir. Ravindra Chargaru, you brought several points into the discussion, particularly liberating maps, which is very, very appealing to most of us because availability of different layers of maps is a challenge to many of us. Apart from that, of course, you brought the scientific temper, rigor that is required in selection, planning, as well as monitoring of the programs, and role of scientific institutions in these institutional arrangements, which seem to be cursory at this point of time. You stating that there is limited role that is being provided to scientific institutions in these matters, which are very important. Thanks for those inputs. And I thank all the panelists who shared their thoughts, experiences, and suggestions in a very lucid way. And they are excellent. I'm sure both NRA and DOLR and NABARD also would benefit from these kinds of suggestions that emerged from these brief presentations. And now we have question and answers. I think there are already some 40 odd questions that emerged already from the panels and from the participants. I would like to take some questions from the participants because we are just about 5 minutes behind our schedule, thanks to all our participants who are very disciplined and maintain time. And the question is from Vijay Kumar from Cherry. This is basically the future direction of watershed programs in rain-fed areas, particularly when PMP is subsumed into PMKSY. How do we actually bring the glory of watershed programs again back to its state and further enhance it? Can I request Ashok ji to respond to this? When PMKSY was envisaged, watershed program became a subset of that. As a result, many panelists also mentioned that this is a wrong thing perhaps. After 5 years, we saw declining investments, nothing is happening effectively, and the entire focus is on irrigation than watershed approach per se. How can we bring back emphasis on watershed programs and rain-fed agriculture and other issues which several panelists mentioned? Is this integrating with PMKSY is good or bad?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think many of us, both within and outside the government, shared the concern expressed in your question. When watershed approach becomes a component of a irrigation system, obviously from the perception perspective also, the focus shifts from soil, water, and agriculture to irrigation, as one of the panelists rightly brought out. So I guess we have to see how to once again create independent niche for watershed development, because here it is more for rain-fed areas, more for those agroecologies which are less endowed in terms of soil, water, and production systems. And somehow, as a component of an irrigation system, it loses its focus. We agree. However, this has been discussed at length with the government, including the Department of Land Resources, which is the which hosts this initiative. And I'm happy to tell you that for the next 3 years now, government has committed finances for continued integrated watershed management program. So IWMP, even if it is one of the 3 components of PMKSY, will continue to get the attention that it deserves as an independent vertical. It is with this particular guarantee of the government that the DOLR asked the NARA to prepare new generation watershed guidelines. And many of you here, including Dr. Ravindra and both Ravindras, have been active members in formulating the new guidelines, including Mr. Crispino. So the new watershed guidelines do take into account various issues that you all brought up very, very cleanly, including, of course, for the first time, the spring shed development, because spring shed development in the Himalayan regions also are crying for attention. So be assured that we will take this watershed forward in the same way as was there earlier. In fact, I think the lament of one of the speakers was that, we have lost the guiding forces for the watershed. Yes, you're right. Many people who are committed to watershed, we have lost them. But there are now people like you who are equally committed. I guess you can create more of advocacy that, in the country today, with 51 or 52% of the area under the rain-fed systems, with the problems being compounded by the climate change and decreasing productivity in the large part of the area, we need greater focus on watershed, and I'm sure that the government would be willing to listen. You need to create that thing. And I would also take this opportunity to make a request to all of you sitting here that now from NARA, we are now thinking how to formulate a comprehensive policy for rainfed agriculture. There are a lot of thoughts, but they're all sporadic. I think they're not in a not in a joint organic manner. So all of you, please, whoever is here and many others who are not here, we can get all of you together, and we will now start working on a comprehensive policy for rainfed agriculture. There could be many, many issues. Okay. So I would request each one of you. I was highly impressed with the issue that each one of you has really brought up. Everything looks so simple, but then unless it is voiced, even including one of the issues that you have brought up, I think 2 of you brought out, was what should be the area of watershed. So far we have talked about micro watershed and mini watershed, but some of you are now talking about basing it on hydrological linkages and therefore increase the area to 20,000 or 25,000 hectares. How would that be possible, and whether it is feasible? That also we can have a look at it with an open mind. So thank you very much, and be assured that we will take this guidelines forward, and the new guidelines which are expected to be approved shortly will certainly address all these concerns. I think both the Dr. Ravindras will bear testimony to what I'm saying here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, sir. Actually, you mentioned several points, including bringing back IWMP its own status and further enhancing that. Apart from that, also thinking of a special exclusive policy for rainfed agriculture per se, which is currently subsumed into irrigated agriculture. So a separate attention or independent rainfed agriculture policy is a welcome thing. I'm sure RRA network would be very happy to be part of this whole process. While talking about scale, while several panelists actually mentioned a kind of sub-river basin, some 20 to 30,000 hectares area for variety of reasons, all valid reasons. I think there is a point mentioned by Debashish Sen, Debashish Sen from PSI. The scale in case of mountain watershed need to be much smaller, considering the slopes and remoteness. I think he is referring to spring sheds broadly. I think they need a little smaller area. Perhaps they need a special type of policy within watershed programs, which are in the framework of spring shed development program. And similarly, when forest lands are dominating in a particular area, how do we address this? This is another issue, I think, with a specific reference to spring shed program development initiatives and also lands with forest. I'm sure the new guidelines would also look at the spring sheds as a subset of this issue, sir, which may have their own kind of norms, which may not be relevant, for other parts of the India, vis-a-vis, high altitude, high rainfall kind of zones. Some special consideration is required for that. That is one consideration, some expression of concern from Debashish. Do you want to react to that point, or you generally agree with that?
No, I think I generally agree with that. And we've tried to address this in our guidelines, and you are also aware of it. So, yeah, so I generally agree. We can have, but I think that will require a lot of policy change, because so far, our thought has been more micro-oriented. Now, suddenly, to expand it, it will certainly require a lot of change. But then, I think generally what I said is that even if we're talking about 4,000 to 5,000 hectares, if you take contiguous patches, right, then naturally it will become a federated organization, right?
Yeah.
Because when you have a smaller area of 5,000 hectares, for example, it is easier to sort of bring the people together, right? And so when you have, it is like having farmer interest groups federated to farmer producers organization.
Yeah.
So I guess,
I think panelists like Sachin and Crispin, and also I think Viju and others, they mentioned that an area of about 25,000 hectares, a sub-river basin kind of area, will make sense from upper, lower region, riparian rights to FPO formation, scale of economy. There seem to be several advantages, while spring shed areas may require a different approach. I think that kind of concerns perhaps have to be located in the new guidelines. That's what, while 5,000 is already there, perhaps that we may have to cross that. That is the broad suggestion.
Before I forget one more point, that when now we're talking about 25,000, 30,000 hectares as a sub-river basin or a rivulet basin, let's say, for example. In fact, what we are now planning, I think on 31st or something, we'll be shortly meeting. But the first, concept basis meeting to think about river rejuvenation, because many of you also are working on the river rejuvenation. There's a lot of linkage between groundwater, subsurface, profile, soil profile, and then of course the small rivulets, which ultimately go to add to the river. So we will also be talking about it. I guess that when you talk about that rejuvenating the river network, I guess this will naturally come in. So we'll bring in all these thoughts. And so I would certainly like to assure all of you that NARA would be there to work with you, okay? And we're here, we can take this entire movement forward. Okay, thank you.
Next question from Vishwajit Mahapatra. This is about promotion of FPOs. There are several suggestions from panelists that FPOs can be overlapping watershed area, and then they can work together, either in enterprise and processing. Variety of functions can be integrated into FPOs, including livelihood concerns. And are there any such experiences? That seems to be the question here. How can round the year agriculture FPO functioning be achieved? That seems to be the question. Can I request Surya and maybe Viju, who worked with FPOs for a long period, to respond these points? The overlapping of FPO agenda with watershed agenda, what are all the implications? Though you mentioned some more reflection on these points. Surya and Viju, can both of you respond to this? I hope you are all there. Hello?
They have gone, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe.
No, okay. Ramu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If they are not there, let me voice my thoughts on this FPO. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, yes, we're all talking about promoting 10,000 FPOs, right?
Right. Yeah.
As the first target. And certainly FPOs can also become part of the, or they can be overlapped, or I'm sorry, they can overlaid in the watershed areas. In fact, in the watershed guidelines that we have written now, we have incorporated FPO as an integral institutional mechanism. Okay, that FPO and its associate organizations. For example, there can be a institutional for input management or output management. Okay, and it can look at, for example, running a custom hiring center. Because when you bring in FPO, primarily we are talking about meeting the input and output management. We're talking about risk management, risk negotiation. Okay, so in a rain-fed area, these are more important because we would like, since the productivity and production is generally will be lesser relative to a irrigated area. Obviously, if the farmers are to make profit, okay, or the returns must be higher, so they have to ensure that the cost of production is as rational as possible. And simultaneously, they must ensure that the wastage is as least as possible. Third, their market transactions and connectivity as efficient as possible. And fourth, risk management has to be very effective. And I think the farmer producers organization can ensure that, because input management or farm mechanization, for example, or aggregating the lot and then connecting with the market.
Variety of services.
Building very simple, infrastructure. Say, for example, a small storage godown or a pack house if there are some horticulture produce, for example. So all these things, a FPO can very effectively do it. And I would say that FPOs are very, very relevant for a rain-fed area, a watershed. Because entire sustainability, as you all said, will come from the ability of the people to stick together. That means to understand one another through a common interest of various activities. So FPO, the basic principle is that it is a democratically managed organization of the farmers, by the farmers, etc. The only difference here, I think, will be where a general FPO is normally of the farmers. Here, I think we can bring in non-farmers also, landless agriculture labor, for example, others who also have. Okay, so here the FPO, or call it simply as a producers organization, where farmers as well as farm related stakeholders are allowed to be members. That should be one different characteristic of this thing. Okay, then I think we'll be able to bring horizontal cooperation and ensure that watershed management is planned, implemented, and owned after the exit of the project authorities.
Just add to Dr. Dalwai's thing. We are looking at two types of institutions. One is in contrast to the commodity-based FPOs, we are looking at the service-based FPOs. Like if climate services are to be provided, like Crispin is saying, then you need to have a platform. So an array of services that includes services for the landless labor, acreage labor, and all that. This is one type of institution. Second is the governance institutions. Now, like if you want to bring water management, not water recharge, but management of water, and then sharing of water, the services related to that, services related to ecology, agroecology. So there's a lot of local norms need to be, regulation need to be in place. So what kind of institutional mechanism we need to have in terms of regulatory systems in the whole ecosystem landscape? So I think the challenge is now how you wedge governance institutions and participatory institutions, not just leaving everything to panchayat by itself, but we even within panchayat embed a system of governance so that the regulation really happens, not just naam ke vaste. So these are the challenges I think the watershed programs need to grapple with now. And then more importantly, not just commodity centric, but as Dr. Dave is saying, the services centric, which improves the ecosystem services and reduce costs, make whole system viable. Yeah.
So you brought in two more important elements from FPOs, also governance related institutional arrangements. The importance of such institutions also, Ravindra, you brought it. I have another question from Saba Ishaq. How do we institutionally implement decompartmentalization in watershed and ensure sustainable active participation of stakeholders? I think I would like to ask this question, Pramathesh, because he emphasized on the need for convergence and that requires a lot of capacity state government level also. Some inputs in a consistent manner. I hope Pramathesh, you are there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you?
I'm also thinking about. No, we are yet to achieve it even in a very large state government partnerships. It's a good question, is what I can say, and it is something that we need to think about. I think first thing to do is to try and our approach is to try and get civil society and state government to work together. Whichever department is coming first on board, strike a partnership with them, and then initiate a dialogue. Now, on the other hand, if we could have an entire policy framework for this, where we could have, we could recognize that this is basically interdisciplinary, interdepartmental in nature, this work. It is not to do with any one department or the other. I think that will be extremely enabling. But then, this is, I mean, it's extremely challenging. So I don't think there is any simple answer to this, because we have had, many decades of working in silos. So to break that is not going to be something which is very easy, but it is certainly very desirable. That's all I can say.
So, Saba, I think the broad message is it's an agenda that one should try and work hard towards that kind of convergence. And I think, there are good experiences, there are so many bad experiences too, but that's important and one should try and make effort. I think that's what is the broad answer. I think this could be the last question. We are approaching our time. This is from Karthikeyan Muniappan. How do we create flexibility in watershed stream design so the differences across the agro-ecological context and priorities of local communities are given necessary space? This is something that Ravindra Chargaru was mentioning about choice of, watershed projects from a climate change perspective as well as vulnerability perspective, from socio-economic indicators point of view. How can we bring this selection local flexibility? That seems to be the question here. Karthikeyan Muniappan is asking, sir. Would you like to respond to that, sir?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, NARA and CREDA have come up with the kind of information and a kind of in case of this prioritizing the rainfall districts. And there exactly we have taken a lot of indicators, NRM indicators, then socioeconomic indicators and infrastructure and all those things. And when you want to really take a next generation watersheds program and development programs across the agro-ecosystems, across the climates like arid, semi-arid, and also the humid, peri-humid agro-ecosystems, where exactly spring sheds would be in the different ecosystems, eastern and northeastern part, where Himalayan ecosystem is there. So it could be a three-tier approach basically. First of all, you need to have an agroecology specific kind of the mesoscale identification of the watersheds in the prioritized districts. Second could be the production system centric. It may be a livestock based centric like western part of the country, like Rajasthan. Then of course, then you have crop based, intensive crop based systems, even within rainfall systems also, like central part of the Madhya Pradesh, like Malwa Plateau, where you have the soybean chickpea systems, soybean wheat systems in black soil areas. And of course, we have other animal-based, animal and tree-based systems. Tree-based systems could be across the ecosystems, where exactly they can provide a lot of goods and services ecosystem-based, So that way you can fine tune. Once you have this 3-tier approach, definitely you can come down from meso scale to micro level, and very exactly you can have different kinds of the interventions for climate proofing. And of course, this could be one approach of what I could contemplate at this point of time. And of course, socioeconomic issues should be integral while doing so, because they vary from agroecology to agroecology, and within agroecology itself, it is sub watershed level. So that way, this we can work upon this, and again in a very participatory mode. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ram, can I come in there? Can I add a point?
Please.
Yeah, what Mr. Bachari mentioned, I would go for a more social-oriented kind of definition. The technical definition of watershed ecosystem is always good, but I would say that more important would be to look at the communities. In fact, if you look at the watershed guidelines, they always had this one preparatory period when you actually work with the community to identify local needs and aspirations. I think that should be the basis of flexibility in the program. I think the overall program should allow that kind of flexibility so that multiple interests can be combined. So that's what I would say, more social approach.
So one point I would like to mention, ultimately it should be like a prescriptive precision kind of activities, progression towards the climate smart watersheds, ultimately, where exactly you have to really address this socioeconomic in addition to the biophysical settings. Thank you.
I think Karthikeyan sir, basically there should be flexibility at the community level in the whole planning and designing the watershed programs, while selection process is also guided by several considerations like climate variability and other issues like that. So it has to be a happy marriage between these two dimensions, and then arrive at climate smart or more sustainable benefit flows. I think these are all the questions, important questions that we could pick up. Are there any? Any?
Just one small thing. I think it's important. Mr. Ashok from the World Bank, he has raised a question saying that often the major constraint that everybody is facing, we also face, when we are talking about watershed program to anybody in the government, is that they want, even politicians, they want a proof of whether it contributes to incomes, whether it contributes to productivity. My appeal, request to Dr. Dalwai is, I think NARA should commission a study, or there are lots of studies on that. Maybe put together a document for the senior officials in terms of the real time and measured benefits of the watershed program, so that watershed program is seen as not just soil and water, but also income and
livelihoods.
Livelihood.
Yeah. Thanks, Ravindra, for that particular input. I request Ashok ji to take that particular suggestion forward. I think it's important to create some kind of image of watershed programs through such documents and considered, fieldwork-based, evidence-based research. Documentation is very essential, sir. Now, I think it's an interesting session with so many stalwarts speaking about watershed program, particularly revisiting the whole idea of watershed programs. All those ideas were very, very useful and very creative, and they are all based on their past experience. And now I request Dr. Rath to propose vote of thanks and broadly conclude the session. And before concluding, I think there is a photo session also through web. I request all panelists to switch on their video picture so that I think they'll take a snapshot of that. And I request Dr. Rath to propose vote of thanks and concluding remarks. Dr.
Rath, you are on mute.
Dr. Rath, can you put unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Could you hear, sir?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, please go ahead, sir. Yeah.
I, on behalf of National Rainfed Area Authority, thank the team of WASAN to arrange such a nice webinar, which is in a very effective manner. And we also, on behalf of our RRA network and our NARA, are grateful to our CEO, Dr. Ashok Dalwai, who has given his precious time in and addressing us and setting the tone for discussion. He has been very much instrumental and given very nice thoughts and ideas in the revision of this guideline with all experiences and knowledges of DFI committee report has also helped us in bringing very important points in this new guideline. And we are also thankful to all these panelists and speakers who have given many valuable insights that need to be addressed, and if those points need to be captured, we'll be doing the right way to accommodate those things in our guideline. We are very much thankful to Dr. Ramchandradu to moderate this webinar in a very efficient manner, and mostly the time management was superb, and in exact time that all the speakers have put forth their views. We are also very much thankful to Dr. Chaudhary, DDG NRM, ICR, who has also given his time for for this event, and many speakers valuable insights they have given, like Dr. Ravindra has given a very new dimension and the new thoughts. Mr. Surya from NABARD, then Mr. Ambastha from BRLF, Vijay Kumarji, then Krishna Lobo also on the water stewardship and all those things. These are new ideas and new dimensions. We are definitely will be seeing how we can accommodate in this new guideline that has been drafted. We are working on that one. And NARA is already engaged in this process. Many of you are also part of this endeavor. We hope that Vasan will be summarizing some of the key points and help us in bringing those points that need to be properly accommodated or need to find place in the new guideline. Definitely, NARA is much benefited with this webinar. We are very much thankful to all of you, all the participants, panelists, and even the questions those have been raised by these participants. And we hope that this will be very much useful and will make use of all these good points in our new guideline. Thank you all.
Thanks very much. And I thank all the participants both on YouTube as well as on Zoom for participating there. We are concluding this webinar with a great sense of humility as well as great sense of satisfaction. I request all the panelists to open their videos. I think there is a small photo session that's happening now. After that, we'll formally conclude this webinar. We thank all the participants who we cannot see them unfortunately. Yeah, but all the panelists can come onto a group photo. I hope, Pratik, you are taking the picture. Hi, Pratik. Rahul?
Yeah, I think Pratik and Rahul has taken the picture. Yeah.
They already did that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks to all the panelists and all the participants for this wonderful evening. It's raining very heavily here. It's a very pleasant weather. Take care of yourself in this peculiar times of COVID, and let us hope for a better version of Watershed programs, which will satisfy all our hopes and desires for rainfed agriculture and people living in rainfed conditions. Thanks very much.
Ram, and all the NRA and RRA people. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Time management, Ram. Excellent time management. Excellent. Great job.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
You are all very well disciplined.
Thank you. Otherwise, thank you.
Hard for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we look forward to your leadership.
Yeah.
We lost many stalwarts and you have to replace them.
Yes, sir.
Thanks very much. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
We'll take it forward certainly. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.